Good afternoon or good morning, everybody. If you're out on the West Coast, I'm Mike Gallagher for today's DFS injury analysis show. Dink's having some computer issues, hence the delay to get started here. So may pop on, or we may have somebody else join. So it's just going to be me to start this thing off. Didn't want to keep you guys waiting for too long. And yeah, let's just kind of hop into this puppy. We've got, I think, 14 questionable tags. Oh, I think Dink might be coming here. But yeah, let's start with the big team that's in trouble, and that's the Atlanta Hawks. They have just everyone banged up right now. We saw Trae Young get added to the injury report. Trent Forrest got ruled out, who's been the backup point guard. He was overtaking Aaron Holiday, so that's easy. That'll be Aaron Holiday getting his minutes. No DeAndre Hunter, no John Collins. We saw Hunter go out early, and interestingly, we saw a lot of Jared Culver. Now it's a little bit different, right? Let's just tackle that first because we know he's out. So I'm pretty sure AJ Griffin's going to start. We had AJ Griffin overs, and it was too much of a sweat considering Hunter went down. So I'd be pretty surprised if Griffin doesn't start. We saw Griffin get the start earlier this year when he was out. It's just a different thing to make your rotation on the fly, like when a guy goes down versus when you have an ability to prep and you know who sub's going to be and so on. So would expect Griffin to start and play a pretty good bit here in a matchup that is going to be beneficial to okay, I think he's in a pretty good spot. He's going to have Jamal Murray on him, so I think Griffin's going to have a pretty good amount of minutes. So definitely into him. Trey illness. I mean, we know we've seen this before. Who knows? I played through illness before. I think he's missed time with illnesses, so we'll have to wait on that one. If he doesn't play, obviously DeJounte will play all point guard. They're probably going to need more ball handling. I wouldn't be surprised because Justin Holiday's out. I mean, they might just run Culver out there, and then you're putting AJ Griffin kind of in DeJounte's role. Obviously, doesn't have the ball handling, so that would mean, oh my god, like DeJounte would have to handle so much. He would be switching matchups from going from if Trey plays, he'll probably see Bruce Brown. If he doesn't play, he'll be picking up the KCP matchup. KCP picks up the main ball handlers. So yeah, that would be obviously a bad matchup. But DeJounte's been able to handle bad matchups. The usage is coming around a little bit. But yeah, it would be a really good spot. Denver's not protecting the paint too well. Their defense as a whole is not very good, so it wouldn't sweat the matchup too much. There, Clint Capella injured as well. He's got a questionable tag. That one's pretty easy. Kongwu would play so much, especially if Kaminsky can't play. Kaminsky would back him up. They would be just dying for anybody to play minutes. Jalen Johnson also questionable. The spread has jumped from I believe opening 1.5 to now it's 4. So yeah, really, really dicey situation for the Hawks, and we'll get more information as we go. I believe it's the second game of the day. Yeah, only 7:00 game today, so we'll definitely have most of that information. We'll expect quite a few game time decisions. Trey probably for sure a game time decision. Those midday Q tags for illnesses are pretty bad. Even midday probable tags for illnesses are bad. Shout out to Terry Rozier. Yeah, so speaking of which, Terry Rozier, he is expected back. Mentioned he had that probable tag. They've been off for a few days now. We saw them just get absolutely dominated by Boston on Monday. So yeah, should be back. We'll see. We're going to see Jalen McDaniels, excuse me, get the start again. Still no Gordon Hayward, and then Maladon obviously goes to the bench. Revenge game for Kelly Oubre. Actually played pretty well in the last one. Rozier will be picking up the matchup against Denny Avdia. I think that's a spot he can take advantage of. Actually, he got held in check the last game, but expect Rozier to pick up big minutes, big role. Matchups okay. So yeah, definitely a spot where I expect him to bounce back. He's just shot the ball so badly right now. Doing this solo is weird. Let me tell you. It's nice to have Dink in there to bounce some ideas off of. There he is, right on cue. All right, there he is.
Yeah, hold up. Still battling here.
Okay, I think we're
you're in it. We're live, so if
we're good. Sorry about that. All right, what are we walking through?
We just did the Hawks. Anything you want to add? Did I mess up on Trey? Is he listed with a shoulder? That may have been my bad if I was.
Yeah, Trey questionable there and was added today. So I think that's a relatively big concern without Hunter, potentially without Capella as well.
It's right shoulder soreness. That's my bad.
Yeah.
I misread my line. Sorry.
So there's a ton there that could end up being a real big mess for Atlanta tonight and end up with. I mean, we could end up seeing essentially like a preseason G League type version of a lineup there.
I was saying I think because we saw Jarrett Culver pick up like all the minutes, much to our chagrin. But it's got to be AJ Griffin starting, right? And then I think Jalen Johnson would start for Collins if Jalen could go. And then if not, they'd probably start Krejci.
I would think so, but they could choose to start Krejci and just leave AJ Griffin in the bench role where like the challenge is trying to find enough scoring. And obviously they'll stagger Trey and DeJounte if they have Trey a lot, but it's possible that if they have Trey, they start AJ Griffin or they start Krejci to keep AJ Griffin's offense in the second unit, who is getting staggered into Trey or DeJounte there.
I think he may have to play a lot though, it's like because as we've been talking about, they just have you just play him 35 plus minutes just to have him out there as much as you can.
Yeah. All right.
I mean, their offense is they're gonna need first unit offense too if Trey can't go.
They are. Yeah, it could be real messy for Atlanta. The good news is that's one of the earlier games on the slate, so we should be able to get that figured out and sorted out pretty quickly. Let's move on to another messy situation: the Miami questionables. They're no longer the Miami Heat; they're just now the Miami questionables. Another matchup with Boston was a really good game last game out. Jimmy is expected back tonight. You mentioned that Spo had quotes about having his team back, so it sounds like all these questionable tags are maybe a little bit less legitimate on the questionable side.
Yeah, they're fake news. I'm expecting. I think everyone except Dedmon is good to go. Jimmy posted on Instagram on a private jet. It looked like that he's going to Boston and he's quote thirsty to return to the game. So I expect full minutes. We've seen just looking at the past few times he's missed time, he has picked up normal playing time. He flew back to Miami for this recovery thing. We haven't found out any details, but you would imagine that he was ramping up for this. And just the comments were just saying like he's ready to go. So I'd be pretty surprised if he has. He probably won't play like 30, 38, 39 or something along those lines because we know Spoelstra's been upping his dudes, but definitely possible. But I think I haven't looked at his minutes yet, but I would probably say like 33 and a half, 34.
Yeah. And from a DFS perspective, it's just going to be hard to find value there with the guys all priced up in the matchup with Boston, even though Boston's defense hasn't been great and they're playing fast. So it's allowing for some higher scoring environments. It's just generally like maybe you can get one guy that kind of pops off. It's tough with all the rates compression there. Let's move over to Philadelphia, where Tobias Harris was listed questionable with illness and supposedly did not go through shoot around this morning. You've talked before in the past with the ill guys. It's not quite the same as the injury guys not going through shoot around. But what's your level of concern here on Tobias Harris possibly missing tonight?
Pretty high. Last game he was ill, couldn't return. Doc Rivers was saying like, oh, he felt absolutely terrible. So obviously not going through shoot around. We're going to project him in, but I think it's very likely that he's out for this one. Just given the way Doc talked about it. I mean, he shot 0 for 7, so definitely expecting him to be, at least limit. He's a guy you can't touch in DFS. Would definitely expect Daniel House to fill that role. They really like him as a guy who can help them on their zone defense as well. Adds another layer for defense and maybe helping switching on John Morant. So I would expect him to get the start.
Yeah.
Losing you. We lose. Yep, lost you, Dink.
I flashed. Yep. I'm still here. I flashed. I don't know. So strange today because I'm not having like internet issues, which is weird. But also could help Tybalt there as another guy that could pick up minutes if Tobias was unable to go.
Yep. Cool.
Okay. Next questionable tag to deal with Tyrese Halliburton. Pacers let us know that he's essentially going to be a game time decision tonight. They're on the West Coast. So what are your thoughts on Halliburton's availability?
Pretty good. He interviewed at shoot around, which is usually a good sign that someone's going to play. He said he's feeling a lot better today than he did yesterday. So definitely leaning in pretty strongly there. New injury. We saw him in the injury report last about a week and a half ago for an ankle injury. So different injury. Groins are a little tricky though. He said he kind of pushed himself a little bit and shoot around to make sure he's going to be good to go. So yeah, big game time for sure. We won't get that until after lock. Absolutely. We won't get the presser until after lock. So there's really no chance we're going to have any information. But I feel pretty good he's going to be in there. Don't think it's about, no back-to-back. So that helps. But I'm expecting him to play. If he doesn't play, that's a little interesting. So I wouldn't be surprised, given the matchup in Lauri Markkanen size at the 3. I wouldn't be surprised if they slide Andrew Nembhard, who is more of a ball handler, into the point guard 1 spot. Then you're moving in Aaron Nesmith in Halliburton spot. He would get the Lauri matchup. And Nembhard would get I would expect him to guard Colin Sexton. So that kind of makes sense to me that we keep TJ McConnell on the bench role. I still think TJ's got a pretty good chance to start, but just given the size on Utah's 3 through 5, or really 3 through 4, I think that makes a lot of sense to me. But we know Carlisle does like McConnell, so I would say he's probably the favorite to start, but just something I want to keep in mind. And again, bottom line is I think Halliburton's going to play.
Yeah, and if he didn't, obviously, even if McConnell was in a bench role, he would benefit enough that he'd probably be playable in DFS, even on the really large slate. And obviously, given that it's a late swap situation that you'd be dealing with, it could be one of those situations, depending on how the slate shakes out and other injury stuff, if there's enough value, or if you're hurting for value, that you might want to try to leave room for that. We'll talk more about that on the premium DFS show tonight behind the paywall. It's your time to shine, Mike. Cavs. Kevin Love, questionable, potentially returning. Right. Lamar Stevens, likely returning. Do you have the jersey watch this week with no?
I do. I literally put an alarm on my phone 10 minutes before showtime to make sure that I did not out myself for being ill prepared. And we don't have the full access here. We know 4. We know the easy 4. That's Garland, Mitchell, Mobley, Dean Wade. We knew those guys were going to start. The last one, which is not Okoro, not Diakite, because they're on the bench jerseys, but we don't see any 5th starter. And I'm pretty sure, especially given the matchup, it's going to be Lamar Stevens. They really like Lamar Stevens. Before he kind of came down, he was missing time. He was very comfortable in that starting lineup, was getting starts almost regardless of matchup, whether it was guarding Giannis or guarding a wing. They really like his on-ball defense. Would expect him to guard Paolo here, so expecting Lamar to get the start. It could be Dean Wade too. It could be a little bit mixture, but I'd be pretty surprised if Lamar Stevens, who went through shoot around, he is probable expected to play. I would expect him to go right into the starting lineup. Kevin Love also questionable with this thumb thing. That's a good sign. Very surprised that he played the second game from when sustaining this injury, and he's been out since. So probably a good chance to play. Not a DFS option. I don't think they would start him. I don't think they want to play him big minutes anyway. So, I feel pretty confident it's going to be Lamar with Wade with the 2 guards, and then Mobley as the 5-man.
All right, let's move to the Magic, who continue to be without Wendell Carter Jr., Jalen Suggs, now Gary Harris, and Chuma Okeke. A lot of depth issues for the Magic. Mo Bamba is also a game-time decision here. This is... they're playing the Cavs. It is one of the earlier games, and the Magic are generally pretty good about injury information, so we should get this one in advance with Bamba. But what are your thoughts here? The Cavs have lost a lot of depth. They're trying to work along. Last game, we knew Markelle Fultz was on a minutes limit of around 15. He ended up playing 17, but that's pretty normal that around 15 can be 17. Cole Anthony was on a minutes limit of around 20. He got to 24. So that one was a little bit more pushed beyond the minutes limit talk that we got from them last game. What are your expectations without Gary Harris? How things shape up for the Magic tonight?
Yeah, really big loss for Gary Harris because, you need ball containment against these Cavs guards. So a huge loss. I kind of think they're going to go Harris to Harris. We saw Kevon Harris pick up minutes. I would expect it to happen again. I don't think they want to play Fultz and Cole Anthony together yet. So I would expect them to start Markelle again. Would expect probably an 18 to 20 cap there. Man, we ran really bad on his under. We missed it by one possession on the under. But so I would expect Fultz, Harris again, but different Harris. Franz, Powell at the 4, and Bol. Mo Bamba also going to be game time. I don't think he's going to start. I think they kind of want to try this new lineup out now that they have their guards back. They were just kind of forced to play big because they had no guards. We saw so much Franz at the point. At least they only had really one point guard. So RJ Hampton, if you want to call him a point guard, I guess would count. But yeah, I would expect a different Harris starting. If it's not him, I mean, I think they like Ross off the bench, so maybe Houston would be a guy. He's just not a very good defender. I think they really need to bring ball pressure. So I think Kevon Harris, who's not a fantasy option, would be
whoever's going to start, it sounds like would not be a real big fantasy option. And it's going to be tough to get excited here. I mean, the Cavs are a very good defensive team. Even without Jared Allen, they can still really defend. And the Magic, outside of Paolo and Franz and Bol, there's not much else with Cole Anthony on a minutes limit. We'll see if that minutes limit is pushed by the wayside for Cole. I don't think it will. I also think that ultimately, Cole Anthony's going to be a 26, 27 minute a night guy. I don't think he's going to be a 30, 35 minute a night guy. I think they tip their hand by saying they're starting Fultz, I think long term they want Cole Anthony to be the microwave off the bench. And I don't think that's a 30 minute a night role. So for DFS purposes, the price is going to have to come way down before we're back.
And we've been talking about this all off season. If you've got Franz and Paolo, you've got offensive punch. You don't need a guy to score. You just want somebody to set the table for him. That's kind of what Fultz is doing.
Yeah. All right, let's move over to the doubtfuls and outs. No Herb Jones, no Brandon Ingram still for the Pelicans. They do get CJ McCollum and Najee Marshall back, both listed as probable. When we were talking about Pelicans minutes, you had some notes on CJ maybe not being a full go just quite yet. It's been kind of a slow grind back from this health and safety protocols. And he was questionable last game, but then kind of ruled out fairly early in the day. What are your thoughts on how the Pels look tonight without Herb Jones, but with CJ McCollum back in the mix?
Yeah, he said he couldn't do any conditioning basically while he was out. So I would expect not a hard. He'll probably get we'll have his minutes monitored quote from Willie Green. So I don't think he's going to get full. I mean, it's really hard to go from no conditioning for almost 2 weeks and then playing 30 minutes in an NBA basketball game in a game that's going to be really fast. The Spurs play fast. So I would expect him to be maybe low 30s, probably on the high end. I don't think he's going to get to 35, 36. Usually a pretty well-conditioned player, so maybe he can get up to speed pretty quick. But just wanted to note that. Yeah, no Herb, definitely a pretty big loss. But they have, Herb Light and Najee Marshall. Would expect him to for sure get the start. So that would be, I think CJ still starts. And I'm curious to see what happens with the Alvarado, Dyson Daniels, and I guess Devontae Graham push-pull, because Dyson Daniels has been remarkable.
Yep.
And he may be coming for Alvarado's minutes at this rate. He's been just, I mean, he is. He did take Alvarado's minutes. He had a really good first half. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Devontae go completely bye-bye in the situation. I would honestly say it's likely. But they may bring in Garrett Temple again to kind of help, because they need on-ball defense to fill in behind Marshall. So I'd expect Temple to probably be ahead of the pecking order on Graham. But Graham's probably going away. I don't think they need to overlap Valanciunas and those guys. And
I feel bad for Devontae Graham. He's a good NBA rotation player who is getting squeezed out by just a really deep team that has no need to really move him because they have so many picks already. And he's just basically an insurance policy on CJ McCollum. But yeah, Daniels looks incredible, was awesome last game, in a game that I thought he was going to be pretty heavily used, just because we talked about the size issues that the Raptors' length really puts pressure on you, and how that could limit Alvarado and Graham and help Dyson Daniels. And then Dyson Daniels was just so good. So I'm really excited to continue to see his growth. He fills a lot of roles that they could use for long term.
Shot looks a little more comfortable too. I'll add. I know they lost Herb. That's kind of a big deal. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think they're okay. Kind of their offense is
against the Spurs.
I took the -7. I think they blow them out today. Zion is. I almost made him. I probably should have made him matchups cover boy, because I mean, if you're going to put 33 on OG and Anunoby, what's going to happen when you're against Keita Bates-Diop on the other end? It could be a big Zion.
Yeah. I mean, the stuff with Zion at this point is basically like, is he going to get caught with charges? Like, that's really the only way to slow him down. And nobody really wants to put their body in front of that dude. So, he's incredible. On the Spurs side of things, no Doug McDermott, no Josh Richardson, still no Jakob Poeltl and Jeremy Sohan. What does that mean for the Spurs rotation? We did see them start Zach Collins last game, but once again, as we've noted with Zach Collins, like, he's just not a guy that's going to play huge minutes. And they were comfortable kind of rotating pieces around. We saw really big minutes for Keldon Johnson. Keita Bates-Diop got into the starting lineup. What are your thoughts here on the Spurs?
Yeah, I would expect basically the same starting lineup on the screen here with Keita Bates-Diop being the sacrificial lamb for Zion. So, yeah, they've kind of run Collins in like shorter stints too. They don't run him out there too long. Let's see, he pulling up popcorn machine. Yeah, he tops out at like 6.5 minute stints, which isn't too much.
Yeah.
So, he probably won't play.
He's
it's
gonna have
not
a hard time getting past 30.
So he'll probably like 31 would probably be like the best case if everything's going according to plan, because they are getting thin. They do have Alize Johnson now. Pop said he didn't really know anything about the game plan, but he liked his energy, blah blah, all the BS quotes, but he doesn't know Pop's system yet. And then also the other thing too, which I butchered the last Spurs time I talked on the injury show. I missed some stuff when I was off the grid, but Roby's a center now. They were playing him as a straight 4, and now that things have kind of shifted, maybe we see a little bit of combo. Alize was kind of subbing in as a backup 4-man, so he's a guy who could pick up some minutes today with McDermott out. Definitely Romeo Langford would benefit a little bit as more of a wing. Malachi Brandon in the rotation, and I believe Charles Bassey is down in the G League again, so that would pretty much secure Roby's minutes in a backup role. And maybe it pays off. If Collins gets in foul trouble, I could find a pretty decent role for Roby possibly coming here.
Yeah. All right. Jake LaRavia doubtful for Memphis again. Desmond Bane's still out. Any rotation notes you want to leave there with the Grizzlies regarding their injury situation?
No, I don't think there's really too much to go into. David Roddy had a really good fourth quarter. I think he's kind of earned a little bit of minutes. He's looked a little bit better shooting the ball. So he looks to be pretty secure here, especially with LaRavia out there. But, it should be more or less a similar situation against a 76ers team that's playing much better on defense, actually first in defensive rating since November 1st. So swapping into the Milton combo has really added a lot of ball pressure. Tough matchup for John Morant, but I think he's going to be really busy in this spot.
Yeah, worth a note, they with some of this wing depth issues, with no LaRavia, with no Desmond Bane, they went down to 9 last game. So we don't see the Grizzlies often play 9. They usually are a 10-man rotation team. But the wing depth is really getting tested, and it's not a spot that they have options, right? Like, you look at the guys who did not play for them. Tillman is a true big, Lofton, true big, Chandler, true guard. Williams, the only other guy, and he's not NBA ready right now. So expect another 9-man rotation from Memphis tonight, which allows their guys, the bench guys like Tyus Jones touched 30 minutes last game. Like, that's in the range of outcomes when they're playing these 9-mans. Partially because Ja got ejected. But all right, on to no Torrey Craig for Phoenix. This one's kind of an interesting one. We've talked about Phoenix's depth issues, specifically at that spot. Cameron Johnson being out, still no resolution to the Jay Crowder stuff. So the 4 spot has been one where they've lost some depth. They're still without Chris Paul once again tonight. Maybe not a matchup that they need all of this depth, but what are your thoughts on the absence of Torrey Craig tonight and how it impacts the Spurs starting lineup?
I'd be pretty surprised if it's not.
Suns.
Yeah, you're good. I would be surprised if it's not Ish Wainwright. He's not too tall. And what is he like? He's like 6'6", 6'7", 6'5", but they view him as a power forward. Like Monty has described him as a guy who plays bigger. So I think that makes sense. I think he would get the Jabari assignment, make things a little bit more difficult for him. They have Dario, I guess, next in line. I don't really feel comfortable with him playing minutes. Josh Okogie, I don't have the official number on this, but I'd probably say 75% of his minutes have been as a 3-man. Even not even next to Mikal, like not next to Mikal. He's more or less been behind Mikal and those guys there. So there may be an outside chance he starts, but I think it's Ish. With Okogie, more Damian. I think if the matchup was a little bit different and they had some smaller 4s on the other side, I think Damian Lee would get the start. They really like him, and he shot the ball well. He's hit some big shots for them also. So expect Damian Lee to pick up some minutes, Ish to get the start, and then Okogie and Dario kind of picking up the leftovers.
Right. In terms of some returns, we've got some big ones tonight. Chris Middleton making his season debut, listed as probable. We think making a season debut, listed as probable tonight for Milwaukee. The probable tag can always be troublesome for Milwaukee. But big game against the Lakers tonight. Chris Middleton's return. How do you see them bringing him along, and who does that impact most from the Bucks?
Yeah, so I think he's going to be pretty good shape here. It is a back-to-back, so it's possible he sits out tomorrow. Should note too that the Bucks are putting out some stuff on social, so it'd be pretty dirty to make social stuff about Middleton's return. But it's the Bucks, so I think yeah, I haven't looked at their minutes yet. I'm doing that after this, but I think he's got pretty close to full here, just because it's a wrist injury. He's been playing with the G League team for like a month, it feels like, so he should be pretty well conditioned here. You don't really have to worry about an aggravation with the wrist injury with surgery quite as much like a hamstring, groin, calf, etc. So I think he's going to play pretty full minutes here. I would expect Javon Carter to get bumped. Certainly don't need extra ball pressure for like guards. So I think that they're okay putting Drew out there, and then Grayson kind of hiding, I guess, more or less. So I would expect the starting line to be Drew, Grayson, Middleton, Giannis, and Brook. But yeah, those definitely Grayson's minutes could be affected. West may go away entirely. We'll see. Connaughton's minutes should be more or less unaffected, not too much ceiling. And then Bobby Portis, kind of a low key loser here, right? Because we've seen him play a ton of four. Now that you have Middleton and Giannis soaking up more of those forward minutes,
Yeah,
they don't need to go there as often. So Bobby Portis, kind of like a low key loser with Middleton coming back.
and Brook, I think on that side, like they've been playing Brook a ton this year, and he's been awesome. He is once again putting up defensive production in terms of the advanced metrics that would make him in consideration for Defensive Player of the Year. But they've got to be thinking about managing his minutes during the course of the season and bringing Middleton back and getting back to a straight 48 between Portis and Lopez or close to a straight 48 would be possible, which might bring Brook Lopez down to the 26-27 range again. So low-key, like something to watch there. And then obviously Giannis and Drew, their rates could get compressed a little bit more with Middleton back, but I think that might take a little bit of time. I think Middleton's going to have to find his rhythm. I wouldn't expect him to come out of the gates with the normal rates that we've seen in the past, but we'll see. We did get a questionable tag on Jamal Murray as we're recording now. Midday questionables, always a concern. The Nuggets are without Michael Porter Jr. And Jeff Green is doubtful. So they've weathered the storm through some of these injuries. We talked last week or earlier this week about how they had a bunch of softer schedule home games coming up. They're on the road in Atlanta tonight. I kind of think this Jamal Murray questionable tag is certainly partly to do with his own health, but I think it might be somewhat to do with all the Hawks showing up on the injury report as well. And especially with Trae Young showing up on the injury report as questionable, they might view this as, hey, maybe this is a spot to just not push it with Jamal. We've got Ish Smith. We've got Bones Highland back. We've got depth here. We might be playing an opponent that's without some of their top guys. What are your thoughts on this midday Q tag for Jamal Murray?
Yeah, new injury for a knee contusion. So it's almost surprising he got put probable with that tag. Looked pretty minor from if it happened when I think it happened. But yeah, so I think he kind of nailed it if he doesn't play. Be curious to see what happens with Bones Highland. I would definitely expect. I think Ish would probably start because they really like Bruce Brown in that wing role. Man, there's so many layers to this because you got Trae and DeJounte on the other side. You definitely want to have Bruce and KCP out there for ball pressure. And I think you could kind of hide another point guard out there and put him on AJ Griffin or whoever. So I think they would probably go that way. But because they do like Bones in the second unit. So I should have mentioned on Bones too. He didn't play in the last game despite being available. He said he was so sick that he couldn't even play video games. So like CJ, it's even worse than CJ McCollum because he was it just sounded really, really bad. So I would expect a pretty hard cap on Bones regardless. So it would be Ish benefiting, and it makes sense just to start him and use your depth that way because you could just use Bruce because you're getting a little thin. I mean, they do like do you think they would start Vlatko Konkar or no? I mean, I think they would start Ish and just play it kind of small.
So I think it depends a lot on Trae's availability.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
If Trey wasn't there, I think that they'd be more inclined to maybe start Conchar and just go with kind of the bigger lineups and whatnot. But I think if Trey is there, I think in a way it allows them to play Ish easier. So I don't know. It's a tough one, but I think it's probably between those two. And I think if Ish starts, it's a good indication that they feel good enough about Bones' minutes. If Ish is off the bench, I'd be concerned that they might not feel great about Bones' minutes. So something to watch there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's not getting full. I mean, it's to be in the shape he was 2 days ago. It feels like he's not going to be ready to go for upper 20s like he was playing before he went down.
Lakers stuff. LeBron, AD, Troy Brown, Jr., Lonnie Walker, all listed probable. Dennis Schroeder listed out, though, for the Lakers. How do you view his absence along with the return of Lonnie Walker, Troy Brown Jr., those guys? What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, all those probables are good. I believe Troy got put to available. So, yeah, he'll be ready to go. Late scratch last time for, I believe it was Lonnie. So, yeah, I'm expecting all 4 of those guys to get the start with Beverly also starting. We saw Schroeder get the start last game, but he's away, as you mentioned, personal reasons. For good reasons, though, having a baby with his wife. So, yeah, should be pretty decent amount of Westbrook. We saw Westbrook lose some minutes. I thought he was going to get a little bit more in this Blazers game, but they just Reeves was too good. They couldn't take Reeves off the floor. He's been playing great, and I'm curious to see if if Reeves takes Beverly's minutes or role, I should say, because they don't really need another ball handler. Although Ham has treated LeBron a little bit differently than Frank Vogel did as far as having another ball handler out there. That was a discussion that I feel like you and I talked about so much with Caruso and so many other guys over the years. But yeah, Darvin Ham definitely doesn't prioritize LeBron bringing the ball up nearly as much. Only had 34 front court touches. He was third on the team in touch time last game. Very odd to see LeBron in kind of almost a secondary ball handler role.
Yeah. Alex, speaking of Alex Caruso, he's probable with an ankle issue. Obviously a very important piece when you're going to go up against Golden State. So what are your thoughts on Alex Caruso and his availability tonight?
It should be fine. Him and Patrick Williams got they're listed on the injury report for having their tail between their legs after Devin Booker put it on them. But yeah, he should be good to go. Definitely need his minutes out there. I'm curious to see what happens if Zach LaVine comes out flat or Ayo comes out flat. Ayo's been okay defensively. I mentioned it was Patrick Williams who got the Devin Booker assignment to start the game. But yeah, definitely expecting Caruso to be good to go. He got listed with this last time, just the standard probable we're listing it just in case tag.
Yeah, the Bulls, sad situation, do not own their pick unless it's inside the top 4 this year, and they're 9-12 so far to start the season.
Not great.
TJ Warren's possible return for Brooklyn tonight. What kind of role do you envision for TJ Warren?
Yeah, I think he's probably just getting non-Durant minutes. This guy has been hurt all the time. This foot thing has been nagging forever. So he's been ramping up for a little bit. I talked about Middleton being able to just kind of hop back into the situation. Polar opposite here. I would expect heavy minutes restriction on TJ Warren. They've got enough depth here. They're playing Joe Harris a ton of minutes. Claxton plays a pretty good bit. Royce plays a ton. Kevin Durant plays a ton. Kyrie's playing full minutes again. So they don't really need it. So I think they'll just throw him out there for the 12, 13 minutes that Kevin Durant's not playing.
Wanted to get your thoughts on Joe Harris. He was in the large field winner on DraftKings on Wednesday. He's played 36 and 37 minutes each of the last few games. Before that, it was like 16, 12, 14. His minutes variance has been really high this year. They're without Ben Simmons, so that has opened up more of a role. But TJ Warren coming back into the mix, even if he needs to get integrated some, I think could potentially impact that. I was going back and forth with Claff on kind of what I think the minutes should be. And we started at like 34 and I got Claff down to 32 and a half just because I think the downside is pretty concerning with Joe Harris when things do go wrong. What are your thoughts there? Do you think the role is really, really stable for Joe and we're going to just see like Royce O'Neal upper 30s consistently from here on out?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that Warren's going to affect him. He'll be affecting, Markieff Morris not playing, Cam Johnson, they'll kind of shift Curry into a more of a smaller role. So I think he's generally, I mean, obviously the upside's probably not as high to play, 38, 39, 37 even, but mid 30s minutes seems pretty safe. In a matchup I really like, the Raptors' weak spot on defense is spot up shooting. So I think Joe Harris can get a lot of clean looks to knock down some threes today.
Yeah,
and
should
should mention
be
too,
interesting.
Kevin Durant gets OG Anunoby. OG held him to a season low 12 points last game. So I actually made Kyrie Irving my cover boy. I think that the Nets kind of minimized their passing today and just really let Kyrie cook here. So I do like Kyrie a lot today, just to add that before you guys hop on the DFS show.
Yeah, I was just gonna note with Joe with Harris. The other note with him is like I think long term his role is pretty interchangeable with Seth Curry.
Mhm.
So I just think the downside to minutes for Joe, like seeing games where he ends up at like 25, where Seth Curry like cooks and is at like 30, 31, or Cam Thomas gets going or whatever. I think those are some of my concerns for Joe Harris. I think he does one specific thing that it has other replacement parts on the roster. Whereas like, KD, Kyrie, Royce, Claxton, they all don't have really the backups that can do those things. So, okay. I think that does it. Any other injury notes that come in that we need to address before we get out of here?
Yeah, that was it.
All right. As always, make sure to support the people who support us. This show is brought to you by our friends at Underdog Fantasy. They have daily NBA snake drafts for money running in addition to many formats of NFL contests, still running for huge prizes. They just started to release their NFL playoff contest, which I think is a really fun one to try to attack. If you're playing NBA Pick'em, in-season subscribers can use our tools to compare ETR projections to their fantasy Pick'em games. If you haven't signed up for Underdog yet, use promo code ETR for a matching deposit bonus up to $100. It's promo code ETR at underdogfantasy.com. As always, if you want to find our DFS breakdowns, you can find us behind the paywall, myself and GPP bro Gary Hartman at 5 o'clock Eastern today. You can also get access to Mike's matchups column, which gives you a lot of these nuggets and more to help you bet props, play DFS, so on and so forth. You can join us for the ride with in-season packages on the DFS side or weekly passes on the prop side. If you are uninterested in giving us your hard-earned dollars, as always, we would love your hard-earned clicks. You could subscribe to this YouTube channel to get notifications whenever we go live. And you can, of course, smash that like button to help circulate this content so we can keep continuing to provide the great free content that we do. Similarly, those clicks help feed Nerdy by Nature music videos from Mike Leone in the social team. So feed us with clicks.
Oh my God. Can we talk about how good that was? That was one of the best things I've ever seen. That was just, as a guy who loves hip hop and loves fantasy, I was like crying. It was just like when he's like, it's like, oh, when the line creates a hole, he's gonna hit it. I was just dying. I was like, oh, Dave, you genius.
Dave Holmes is a comedic genius with this stuff. He also helped me with the Al Pacino Any Given Sunday speech as well. But yeah, so your good hard-earned clicks circulating that algorithm help feed our social team to make sure we keep providing the fun content that you guys all enjoy. That'll do it for us this week. We'll be back on Monday with another edition of Establish the Show. Have a great weekend. Good luck in your games tonight. And hopefully we'll see you behind the paywall on the DFS show later tonight. Take care, everybody.